One more question.
Sure.
You said that this implements the payment protocol, but when you make a send transaction, I don't see any refund address or anything like that.
Sure. So the two things are required in the payment protocol. One is the recipient support of payment protocol, and two is the client support. Most payment protocol implementations right now are BitPay, Coinbase, larger payment processors, because it does require a couple round trips with the server with specific messages sent by the HTTP server. I think Schildebach has a way of doing it over Bluetooth, so if you have the Android version, you can actually request a payment protocol payment via Bluetooth from a peer, but I'm not entirely certain on the details of how that works. So
in order to initiate one, you have to not QR code scan, but
for Bluetooth, yeah, it wouldn't be a QR code scan. I think I don't actually know if they do Bluetooth beacon. I don't think he does Bluetooth beacon. But for the regular payment protocol, you scan a QR code, right? And the QR code contains the URL that you hit with the appropriate headers, which will then send you the appropriate response.
Okay, so that's how it works.
Yep. Yeah, it basically, it causes your browser to hit a URL first, which can then do some extra data exchange and set up the payment request. There's some really good content on the Bitcoin wiki on this, and I'm happy to help. So, any other questions? One in the back?
Yeah, just go back to Foxtrot that you talked about.
Sure.
You said, did I hear correctly, TCP/IP?
So the end objective is to replace TCP/IP. Yeah. We need to implement TCP-like guarantees. However, TCP-like guarantees aren't always what you want. So this is largely experimental. As Foxtrot exists today, it is an overlay on top of TCP/IP.
And you want it on top of what? What type of thing?
We ultimately want Foxtrot to be a link-level protocol, in that ideally a full worldwide mesh network would be powered at the link level by self-negotiating Bitcoin payment channels and these nodes speaking the Foxtrot protocol to one another, who could then be individually responsible for routing and consolidating.
What physical link?
What physical link? Any physical link. We can do this over direct wire. We can do this over point-to-point radio. We have a couple of the guys want to do it over a ham radio wavelength. The idea is to basically build the protocol and figure out how such a routing network would work. Then we can start to figure out how to apply it to the link level in various spaces. And of course, it may not be optimal for all. We're still very, very early on in the phases of development of Foxtrot. One of the things that we are doing, however, is trying to use it as much as possible, just so we can start expanding it out and investigating the various use cases. So it's very early on, very, very early on. It is, but this is Bitcoin after all. We do believe that at a certain point, the trend of decentralization is going to be unstoppable, and that these types of solutions need to be built. Someone needs to be this ambitious. Someone needs to go after these questions and figure out if it is possible to actually build a truly decentralized stack, or if it's just intractable problems. We believe that we can totally do it, so we're going after it.
So now, do you have actually resources on this part?
Sorry?
Do you have actually now resources to use?
Yes, absolutely. A significant portion of our development team is focused exclusively on our open source projects. Payment processing is is currently like our main business focus, but it's actually a very simple thing to do. It's so simple, in fact, that we realized that payment processing, if it's so easy to do with Bitcoin, the costs are going to be driven to zero. So what we did is we said, you know what, we're just not going to charge for payment processing anymore. That is not what we dropped our cost to zero, flat out, full time, committed to it forever, right? It's a market share play, sure, but we just simply do not believe that there is going to be a competitive business in the payment processing space once cryptocurrency truly takes over. That will exist at the network level. You'll pay as fees to the network, but you will not be paying a third-party trusted company to process your transactions, right? Instead, we think that the value is going to be in other places. Obviously, we will charge enterprise-level customers for 5-minute response times, of course, but we believe in a much bigger vision, a much broader vision about what the implications of the blockchain are, right? And that includes communications, that includes how we do asset management, that includes document signatories. Copay in the future may even allow you to sign documents with the same private keys, right? Where you can now assert that you are a specific identity. You've signed a document, you're handing it over to someone else. All of these things, now that we have this like permanent record in time, which is the blockchain, you can record things in time, absolutely irrevocably truthful. A lot of possibilities are opened up. So we're exploring all of them.
You have actually now on the cloud storage for like big customers, like funds? Do you hold funds for other customers?
Yeah, we do not hold funds. Okay, so Copay has the opportunity to back up your keys into the cloud. It takes your encrypted keys and encrypts them with a combination of username, password, and a salt that is stored locally on the device, and stores the encrypted version on the distributed mesh network, right? So it allows you to share devices, but we're starting to really move away from that model, at least until we can like truly decentralize it, so that there is no one party responsible for anybody's funds, and that they are adequately secured on the network.
So just to understand, I just want to understand clearly exactly what you're doing. Today, you're not responsible for any other customers from the central, right?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. We do not have access to any keys. We're not held liable for that. The user is explicitly storing the keys on his device, and the cloud storage is used as a backup. All right, any other questions before we close it up?
Last one, philosophical. So what's Bitcoin's take in terms of this whole 1.0 and 2.0 space?
We are very interested in what the possibilities are of the blockchain. We do not feel that any sort of altcoin is appropriate for solutions like this to be built on top of the blockchain. You lose a massive amount of security when you move away from the sort of hashing rate, the network effect that Bitcoin itself has.
Even with the side chains? Or?
Side chains are very, very interesting. We have some active research efforts going into side chains right now, and some interesting developments I hope will come out of that. Everything that BitPay is trying to do is trying to figure out how to work through the difficulty and the slowness of changing the Bitcoin protocol. We believe that it is important, however, to sort of pool and corral resources such that there is no weak link on the network. Sidechains are very interesting for this reason because it allows you to simply fall back onto the security of the Bitcoin network. We feel that projects like Ethereum are very exciting. They're sort of thought leaders in the space. And we encourage them to continue as much as possible. My personal perspective is that sort of altcoins have 3 roles. I won't even treat them as altcoins, altchains, right? Have sort of 3 roles. The first of which is to innovate, which some of them are doing. Ethereum, BitShares, a couple of the others are very interesting things. They're coming up with new ideas. The second is to validate, right? So Bitcoin itself has achieved this massive network effect, right? It's a juggernaut in the space. So in order to make any significant motion, right, you have to have a significant leap forward in, what are you bringing to the table? And it's not just switching out a hashing algorithm. It's not just, adding a couple of new script codes. You got to do something really powerful here, right? This is why Counterparty is doing really well, is because they actually found a real use case. So it's to validate that idea. So if you've innovated on something, bring it to market, and it kind of grows and blossoms, that's great. That's step 2. Step 3 is to integrate. All of this stuff being based on open source technology, there is no reason why any of these protocols can't slowly start to glean from one another the better aspects of each thing. Now, it's going to be difficult, as we can see with the sort of the block size issue, right? We're proposing to increase the block size slowly over time, but increase it nonetheless. I mean, heaven forbid, up to a size of 1 gigabyte. That's a scary and slow process, right? You're dealing with people's money, right? I mean, it's scary. It's going to take a long time to get consensus on this. But there's a reason for that, right? It's so that the network at large moves at the whim, not at the whim of people or of the network, but at the overall will of the network. So a smoothed average of what people are doing, right? If you just sort of snap to every new altcoin, you'd probably be broke by the end of the week. So it's really important to just recognize that everything is open source. We can always find an answer on how to fix something or improve something once the answer is known, right? Like once that innovation is brought to the table and, okay, yeah, that is a great idea. It works. That looks really good, right? And then we integrate. Bitcoin is not this static asset. It is a growing and changing piece of code, right? And it will be in perpetuity. If it ever becomes stale and static, then one of these competitors to the market will take its place, and that's okay. We're totally acceptable with that. The BitPay policy is, well, hey, if a currency gets bigger than Bitcoin, right, that provides more security than Bitcoin, then we're going to switch everything over to that other currency because it is more secure for our customers, right? That's the bottom line, is we want to provide top-of-the-line security to all of our customers.
Are you hiring?
We are hiring. We are hiring in all of our offices at this time. San Francisco, Amsterdam, Atlanta, I believe also in Argentina. We have 2 offices in Argentina. A good portion of our developers are located in Argentina. We're looking for senior node engineers, or cryptographers. Yeah, so feel free to come talk. All right, thank you guys very much.
Thanks, Eric. And we'll take a quick break. We'll come back.